In recent years, there's been a drumbeat on the right of British politics for withdrawal from the European Convention on Human Rights, with claims it thwarts government policy. Nigel Farage has made it clear he plans to use Reform UK's parliamentary representation as a platform to agitate for withdrawal from the ECHR.
We will only stop this if we start deporting people that come illegally. Then they won't pay the smugglers. But we'll only do that by leaving the ECHR. But I've got a fun suggestion that I think would liven up politics, engage the public, and see a massively increased turnout. Why don't we have a referendum on whether we continue to be members of the ECHR?
Well, the last time this guy called for a referendum on something, it worked out well, didn't it?
Priti Patel seems to have completely given up on it. She's proud of her record of emboldening mass immigration between 2021 until now, and she won't even leave the ECHR. These are things about which actually the majority of the British people, I think, are settled.
Well, imagine the shock for the deputy leader of Reform UK when he finds out that a number of recent polls conducted by YouGov have found that a majority of respondents were not in favour of leaving the convention. In fact, in June, a poll found that 54% of respondents said the UK should remain a member of the ECHR.
If we're truly committed to stopping the boats, then we'll have to consider all options, including with regard to the European Convention on Human Rights.
A Conservative leadership contest is now taking place in which most of the candidates are actually flirting with the idea of leaving the ECHR.
Are you willing to withdraw from that convention, or lead a Conservative Party campaigning to withdraw from it?
I am willing to do it.
What a difference 2 years makes.
Would you leave the European Convention on Human Rights?
No.
Some of the candidates are outright committed to leaving the ECHR.
I think we should leave the ECHR. It's not in the interest of the British public, and I think it's time for us to leave.
Well, Mr. Jenrick will fall off his chair when he finds out the European Convention on Human Rights protects our right to a fair trial, freedom of assembly and expression, the right to participate in free elections, freedom of religion, freedom from discrimination, the right to privacy, freedom from torture and degrading treatment. And that's not all. The ECHR has protected British people from abuses of power by its own government. And if all that's not enough to convince you we should remain a member, leaving the ECHR could result in the UK's trade deal with the EU being terminated, because the convention is written into the 2020 Trade and Cooperation Agreement. And it would also be a breach of the Good Friday Agreement, which requires that the convention be directly enforceable in Northern Ireland. So with all that in mind, just listen to this bunch again.
I do actually support leaving the European Convention on Human Rights.
Are you willing to withdraw from that convention, or lead a Conservative Party campaigning to withdraw from it?
I am willing to do it.
Why don't we have a referendum on whether we continue to be members of the ECHR?
Yes, the Tories lost the general election in July, and the UK has an elected Labour government committed to the ECHR. But the new government still faces a populist challenge from a Reform Party which now has 5 MPs and its mission to drag the UK out of the ECHR. And as we've seen in recent weeks in the Tory leadership contest, many of the candidates are now attempting to curry favour with the party's electorate by also flirting with exit. Thankfully, we have a new Prime Minister who is up for the fight.
Let me be clear. There is no need to withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights. That is not consistent with the values of that blood bond, and so we won't withdraw, not now, not ever.
If we want to avoid a dangerous chain of events which could one day see Britain joining Russia and Belarus as the only European countries outside the ECHR, we need to constantly call out this drumbeat from the right to leave. So please do share this film with family and friends.